Hey guys, a Sleepy Reader here. This is, I guess, a sleepy vlog, slow sleepy vlog number 20. It's kind of what I've been reading lately plus some other thoughts. I continue to read all digital, it seems. And I'm getting really sick of digital. I want to just read some paper comic books and books in my hands. My life just continues to be kind of crazy. I haven't read that many comics lately, and what I have, I've found it most convenient to read it on my digital platforms. I now have at least 3 digital platforms that I'm reading from. So on my Marvel Unlimited, I read some more Captain Marvel. I'd mentioned reading some of the new Marvel Now, Captain Marvel, and liking it. The next few issues I read, which were 6 through 9. Actually, I didn't get all the way through 9 yet. The art change kind of stopped me. But the first 5 issues were much better, or better for me. And maybe it's part of my digital burnout, but I just found myself less caring and less charmed by Kelly Sue DeConnick's script, which does have to struggle with these constantly changing artists. So I think I'll keep going with it because I hear it's gotten better again. So as more digital versions come out, I'll try that. There were 2 issues that were devoted to Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers hanging out with, I can't remember her name. Briefly in the 80s, there was an African-American Captain Marvel who wore an all-white costume. That's how I basically remember her. And I remember she was a member of the Avengers. I don't know if she had her own comic book or not. But so they are 2 issues of the 2 of them hanging out, and it's kind of like a buddy cop movie or something where they like each other, but they squabble and complain. So maybe a female version of a buddy cop thing. Oh, my door's opening. Hang on a second. Everyone else in the house is asleep, so I don't want the door open in case I'll wake them up with my chattering. So yeah, I just wasn't too enthusiastic about the Captain Marvel. I read some issues of the Red She-Hulk, which has already been canceled, but a few issues have made it onto the digital all-you-can-eat buffet of Marvel Unlimited. And I'm kind of up and down in my enjoyment of the Red She-Hulk that I've read so far, which I guess is a total of 4 issues. There is some fun there, and it's interesting to see her teamed up with Machine Man. So I'll continue reading that and probably like it okay, I'm guessing. Those are written by Jeff Parker, who I kind of have some I shouldn't say bad experience. I never get very excited when I read Jeff Parker comic books, and I hate to pick on one writer. I mean, I may soon come across the right books by him that I'll love. But he was the writer on the new Batman 66, and I got the first digital issue of that, which I guess is would be 1/3 of the story and a third of the print comic book that just came out. And it's actually a very cool digital comic, which probably some other people, I remember hearing Comic Book Mom mentioning it on a Hangout or something. They really worked hard on the... I've got to switch hands. They really worked hard on the digital experience with the images, sort of sliding one to another. They did a kind of cool thing where... How have I done this before? They did a kind of cool thing where the colors will change in the same panel. So it felt like visually like a very rich experience, and felt like much more than your normal 99-cent comic book, which is really only 10 pages. So I'm looking for some panels where the colors change. I guess I've got to swipe through them all. Somehow it works differently than the regular digital comics, so you can't just choose pages to skip to very easily. Let me see. Oh, here's one that might be a good example, though. So I'm going to show you a panel where the color changes as you tap on it, which is kind of a cool effect. And they do that in a couple of different places. So this artist, David Case, I think is his name, is pretty impressive. He's kind of in a Chris Samney style a bit. So let's see. Oh, did the color change there? Yeah, it's kind of subtle. So they just changed the color there to go with the different emotional effect as Batman and Robin down below realize it's the Riddler. The Riddler is amazingly well drawn as Frank Gorshin from the original Batman TV show. Batman and Robin look a little bit less like Bruce Ward. I'm forgetting the actor's name. A little bit less like the original actors. Oh, there's a nice Frank Gorshin style picture, and as you swipe it, the color changes as the light is changing, I guess, as he's moving along in his airplane. So it's great art, and it's hard to put my finger on why I don't love the writing. And maybe I should give it a chance and read the whole story, which would cost me $3 if I bought all of the... Oh, here's another one. I do like this, of all their little digital gimmicks, I do like this change of the color. It's kind of neat. It's like, makes it feel like they're speeding up or something, or heading into an explosion. So anyway, there's something about, I mean, on the surface, Jeff Parker seems to get all the way people talk and everything, but it just doesn't wow me. It always feels like there's a lack of layers in Jeff Parker comics, and I guess it's kind of funny to talk about layers in a Batman 66 spoofy comic, but somehow it seems less good to me than the old TV show. I was a huge fan, especially as a kid, of that old TV show. I loved all the Biff Pow fight sequences, and I loved the cheesy way Batman talked and Commissioner Gordon and all of that. I really loved that show as a kid. So unfortunately, maybe my expectations were too high on Batman 66. It'd be very interesting to compare it to the print experience. Maybe it's better in print despite all these bells and whistles. It's not like I want all my comic books to have these digital tricks in them. I still prefer a nice page with a nice layout. But we're going to be seeing more of these. They're going to come on more and more. You can reach a wider audience with digital. People who don't even know where a comic book store is might stumble across them. There was a zero issue of something called Motorcycle Samurai, about a post-apocalyptic kick-ass woman samurai on a motorcycle. And it had pretty cool kind of indie art. I think this is from Oni or one of the other small presses. And let me try that again. And the art's kind of cool. There really is no story here. It's just a bunch of fighting. A bunch of women fighting each other with swords. And that can be fun for a little while, but it gets kind of tedious after a while. So it seems like maybe, and it's digital only, and there's all kinds of panel transitions. Let me see if I can get an example of their panel transitions. Someone's ringing the bell outside my window. But the panel transitions aren't enough to keep me entertained. There's not enough content here. You can see they kind of... And if you look on these digital comics that are come this way, when they say how many pages they are, they'll be like 120 pages. Because really it's 20 pages or less, but with many transitions per page. So anyway, I don't know if I would get any more of Motorcycle Samurai. I'd have to hear that the art's a lot of fun, but I'd have to hear that the story develops in any kind of way. I think those are mostly the digital comics I've had time to read. I read some Adventure Time with my daughter, which I get digitally, and something like that actually works really well digitally because we see one panel at a time. And so she can focus on what I'm reading rather than looking at some other picture across the page and saying, look what happens there. We also, my daughter and I, got the Plants vs. Zombies comic, which I think may be digital only at the moment also, from Dark Horse. So you have to get it on their app. And it's 99 cents for a 15-page comic book. And it's actually very good. I think the art is very good. The writing is very good. It's definitely most clearly a kid's comic, because along with all the familiar figures from Plants vs. Zombies, there's these two kids who are the central characters, right here and here. It was a lot of fun. If you like this kind of thing, it's called Lawnmageddon. It's not very violent. So far it hasn't shown anyone get killed or anything. Eventually the zombies, of course, will get knocked to pieces by the plants. But anyway, so I recommend that if you read digitally, and hopefully it'll eventually come out in print comics. So I kind of excuse myself when I'm buying comics for my daughter, but from the idea that I was supposed to spend zero money on comics or other leisure time things all this summer. As many of you know, I've said that I wouldn't start buying comics or spending money on comics-related things till September or possibly October. And so the only thing I've really bought that was just for myself there on the digital that I hadn't, already paid for was the Batman 66. So I guess since I wasn't super excited about it, I can resist it at least till October. I can always, with digital, I can always go back and buy them or buy them in print. But I have to confess, I have cheated and I've just spent some money comic related. I purchased a bunch of magazines from Tomorrow's Press, who are the publishers of the Jack Kirby Collector and Comic Book Artist and what are the names of some of the Comic Book Creator. They do a lot of biographies. They have a series called Back Issue, a series called Alter Ego, Draw Magazine. So I ordered a bunch of them, and two of them just came in the mail. One I really want and forgot to order is Back Issue number 61, which I think is about the giant-sized Treasury editions, which I remember Solid 4 ST Bend talking about. But anyway, two of the Jack Kirby collectors that I ordered came in. One is one that must date back. Is there a date on the cover? Anyway, it must date back several years. It's Jack Kirby Collector number 24, before they went to the large size. But it has this really cool wraparound cover. It's supposed to be from Jason and the Argonauts, I think, fighting. It's Jack Kirby's vision of what it would be like fighting the Cyclops. So a very cool illustration. And as many of you know, they later went to this nice large tabloid size. So there's I think I own almost all the tabloid. I can't say that word right. Tabloid size collectors, and now I'm getting some of the others. And then I ordered some that were just out or about to come out. The newest Jack Kirby Collector has this kind of cool robot image on the cover. It's back down to the small size which I found to be a bit of a ripoff in the last. So this is issue 61. I guess when I got issue 60, I thought the paper was kind of cheap, and the images didn't look very good, and it cost just as much, and it was the smaller size. But now, the smaller size comic is printed on much nicer paper, and it has some color in it. And so I'm finding it much more worth my while. I haven't got to read these. I haven't got to read these at all. They came in the mail. So these are my evil sin comics that I bought when I wasn't supposed to buy anything. They're magazines. They're not comics. So I'm pretty excited to read those. And another thing, you could spend a lot of time just reading things about comics, and that's very relaxing. Or I find it very relaxing. It doesn't take much brain power, and I just sort of sit back and feel good about comic books. So I got some books out of the library along those lines. I'm looking for one of them. Oh, here it is. I put it right by my desk. It's huge. I just have a tiny desk here that my computer's on. It's the DC Year by Year Visual Chronicle. Beautiful drawing on it by Brian Sook, who did the cover. Oh, there's Frank Miller's Ronin. So, it's a pretty quick gloss over a long and glorious history. But it's a lot of fun to just read all these little entries. So far I've read a lot about the very early days of DC Comics, and interesting to see how the person who founded DC Comics within like a year and a half or 2 years was starting to go bankrupt and was bought out by his printers. So it's been changing hands from the very beginning. I mean, now it's owned by Warner Brothers, but who knows how many different companies have owned it over the years. So the owners of the original heyday of it were these printers who took it over. What were their names? I'm not going to find it. So when the Superman book came out, the first Action Comics, it was already on its second owner. And another interesting thing for me about Superman and Siegel and Schuster, who created Superman, is that they had lots of other comic strips or comic book stories in the early DC Comics before Superman came out. And I didn't realize that. I thought that Superman was their very first comic book, and they sold it off for a pittance because they were so desperate just to get into comic books. But I guess, although they'd been shopping Superman around for a while, mostly to newspapers, they'd been successfully selling these little stories about, I think this is one of them. Who's this guy? Private Eye Slam Bradley. I think that's also by Siegel and Schuster. You can see it looks a lot like Superman. So they were, I guess successful might not be the word, but they were in the comic book biz before Superman came along. That was just, to me, an interesting detail. And they... I'm guessing at this point they were desperate because no one else would publish Superman, but their careers weren't, entirely tied up with Superman at that point. So that is just an interesting fact to me. Let's see, what's Slam Bradley, Cyril Sanders, I don't know. Anyway, it seemed like there were 3 or 4 different series that they were working on before Superman. So it's a lot of fun to look through. I got it from the library. Would I buy this? If I had lots of money, yeah, because I really enjoy it as a coffee table book. There's so many books I'd like to get. I think there's this book that Itanik one showed in one of his videos that was kind of a history of all of DC also, but by Paul Levitz, and it looked like it was much more thorough. And I'd like to get that, which is like $150 or something. But anyway, so I had a lot of fun with that. And then kind of related to that is this other coffee table book, not quite as big, called 1,000 Comic Books You Must Read by Tony Isabella, who was a scripter at Marvel and DC in the 70s, maybe in the 80s too, I'm not sure. And it's fun to look through just to kind of find out about comics you never even knew existed, and read little descriptions of them. So I've got kind of a kick out of reading that. Isabella actually includes some comic books written by himself, and comic books that were just favorites of his as a kid or something like that. But other parts of it are, give you kind of some high points of the comic book history. So it's a fun book to look for. I don't feel like I must read all of the comics in here that he mentions in here, but it gives you a lot of ideas. And I've never seen Planet Comics. Oops, it's on this page. Planet Comics, but I'm very curious about that. I wonder if they're any good from the 40s and 50s. As a science fiction fan, I'm just kind of curious about those. So that seems to cover what I've been reading, what I've been looking at. I feel like I had some other thoughts to share. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. There's a very interesting podcast called JK's Happy Hour, which is by JK. It's horrible. Now I can't remember his name. He's an artist who does painted comics, and his most recent one was the painted comic of Doctor Who meeting Star Trek The Next Generation. What's his name? JK. It's called JK's Happy Hour, so I remember the JK. But I've listened to them talk to like Gabriel Hartman and some other comic book artists, and it's really interesting. They sit around talking at a bar about comics and being a comic book artist and such. But in fact, Gabriel Hartman or Hardman on there talked about the importance of digital reaching audiences that you wouldn't normally reach. And I can see with the Batman 66 that maybe that's why they put so much effort into making it kind of a really beautiful digital package art-wise, because a lot of, people who might be very casual in their interest in comics might see that and say, oh yeah, the old Batman with Adam West, I got to get that. And so that's their chance to kind of hook some people in, maybe, who wouldn't venture into the comic book stores to discover Batman 66. Gabriel Hardman felt that digital comics are also a way to get beyond the bad business practices that have come out of comic book stores of focusing on ways to squeeze extra amount of money out of collectors rather than build up readers. And that made sense while I was listening to him, except for the fact that I am, more and more disenchanted by reading comics digitally. But at the same time, I do keep grabbing them and buying them because it's so easy and so quick to find them. So I can see his point, because lots of people might discover comic books on their iPad or other tablet that who might not have been able to sort through what they were seeing when they wandered into a comic book store, if they have a comic book store to wander into. I mentioned a number of vlogs ago about a friend of mine, who's roughly my age, who still would be interested in comic books if he can find things good to read, but went into comic book stores and just got kind of bewildered and couldn't hack it. So, one of my recent get-togethers with him, I lent him a copy of Saga Volume 1, the trade, and Fatale, the first trade of Fatale. And I was sure that he would come back to me the next time I saw him going, oh man, those comics are so great. Where are more great comic books like that? Because that's what I feel I would do if someone out of the blue gave me those books. But he said, well, I don't know if that science fiction-y one is my thing. And that one that was kind of noirish looked kind of interesting. So he'd read a little bit of each of them, and so far hadn't been wowed. So I was kind of bummed by that. But we'll see. Maybe by the time he finishes them, maybe it takes time for these things to seep in and for you to really realize how great they are. I don't know. I've read so many comics of recent time. When I read something like Saga, I instantly recognize how great it is. Or Fatale, for that matter. Okay, I'm going to sign off as usual. I've blabbered on for a really long time. No, wait a minute. I thought of one more thing I want to bitch about. So, it turned out that Stroke Pilot, who is receiving my gift from the last vlog, lives in Latin America. And so I kind of backed down on how much I was mailing to him, because just mailing him, should I talk amounts? Just mailing him 10 comics through the postal system cost $24. And that was like, with all the packaging and everything, was like a 1 pound, 10 ounces, I think. And if I'd sent him a bigger package, it would have been $70. And it just seems crazy because, for one thing, if I flew to the city he lives in, which is the major city of the country he lives in, I don't know if he wants me to tell what country and city he lives in. If I flew to that country, I bet it wouldn't cost me as much as sending 100 of those packages. So $2,400, or it might cost me just $2,400 to ship myself there. I could go there, put his package in, or put a lot of packages in luggage and carry them to that country and then fly back for less money. And, maybe that's not a fair comparison. The other thing is, I live in Oregon, where they, in this area, they grow a lot of raspberries. But if you go to the grocery store, most of the raspberries are from Chile, in Latin America, in South America. And apparently, it's cheaper to fly those raspberries to America here in Oregon. Cheaper to fly them here in Oregon, where we also grow raspberries, and sell them to us. So the shipping costs can't be that great. I don't know if maybe it's customs, but I also wonder if, I don't know. I just don't get why it costs so much to mail internationally in this day and age. Because it's probably, maybe it should cost twice as much as it costs to mail inside the U.S., but, not many multiples of that amount. Anyway, I guess all that hurts is individuals wanting to send each other presents, because obviously the big corporations can send their raspberries for almost nothing from Chile and save money over the ones trucked in from 10 miles away. So that's my rant on that. And it's just a bummer, because here we are all connected, but it would cost a huge amount of money to send things to my friends in other countries, and I'm pissed about that. I'm soon to be sending something to Canada, so I'll see if that costs just as much as to Latin America, or if it's a little cheaper. But, I can drive to Canada. I can drive to many parts of Canada for are a relatively short distance to me than other parts of the U.S. So it's just a weird thing. Maybe the internet will eventually help us break down so that there's less boundaries between all these countries. So, yeah, my stinginess over postal rates leading me to world peace. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.